Generative AI has largely concluded its experimental phase. The current transition focuses on agentic software, autonomous systems that act rather than just respond. An AI agent operates with autonomy. It observes its environment, selects the appropriate tools, and executes multi-step workflows entirely on its own, without waiting for human input. This behavior breaks traditional IT governance. Corporate access controls are designed to authenticate human beings and explicitly permissioned applications, not software that reasons and decides its own next steps at machine speed. Legacy enterprise systems are highly vulnerable to this. An ERP database, which enforces rigid transactional accuracy, was never built to accept open-ended queries from an autonomous language model. When an organization allows employees to deploy agents without central oversight, that delegated access creates a sprawling, invisible network of autonomous software. This unmanaged delegation turns into a shadow AI network that directly threatens the integrity of core business infrastructure. Microsoft's structural solution to this fragmentation is a platform called Agent 365. Reaching general availability on May 1, 2026, it targets the enterprise reality that agents are multiplying faster than IT can track them. Agent 365 is not an agent builder. You do not use it to create autonomous workflows. Tools like Copilot Studio and Microsoft Foundry already exist for that purpose. Instead, it is the governance layer. It serves as a unified control plane built exclusively to observe, manage, and secure non-human workflows across an organization. By centralizing identity, logging, and permissions, Agent 365 bridges the gap between ad hoc AI experiments and highly governed enterprise-scale operations. To understand how this works, we look at this diagram of the historical baseline for AI access, the on-behalf of permission flow. Here, an agent temporarily borrows a human user's delegated token to interact with a system. That model fails when an agent is assigned a long-running, asynchronous task. If the human user logs offline, the delegated token expires, the tether snaps, and the autonomous workflow collapses. Agent 365 introduces an architectural fix, Microsoft Entra Agent ID. The agent stops borrowing access and receives its own independent identity shield, establishing a permanent, secure connection to the database. Microsoft designates these as agentic users. They are granted unique principal names, their own dedicated OneDrive storage, and a formal presence in the corporate organizational chart. Giving software a first-class identity has immediate cybersecurity implications. An agent is no longer an invisible script. It is a tracked entity with a specific owner, an audit trail, and an exact list of accessible resources. IT administrators can now apply standard security protocols directly to the agent. This includes risk-based sign-in policies, anomaly detection, and conditional access rules that restrict an agent's permissions based on its operating context. You cannot enforce zero trust on an actor you cannot uniquely identify. Assigning a human equivalent identity to an agent is the only mechanism that allows an enterprise to verify every autonomous request before granting access. But verifying identity only solves half the problem. Knowing exactly who an agent is does not guarantee it will behave safely once inside the data environment. ERP systems demand absolute structure. Exposing raw ERP APIs to a large language model invites chaos, as the model may hallucinate parameters or execute unpredictable, destructive data modifications. This structural barrier is the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. It acts as the governed plumbing between the agent's logic and the ERP system. MCP replaces open-ended API access with strict governed interaction pathways. The protocol defines exactly how data is interpreted and what actions the agent is permitted to take. The first pathway handles resources. This defines the specific read-only data, like financial records or API responses, that the agent is authorized to observe to gain context. The second pathway controls tools. These are the explicitly permissible executable functions the agent can trigger, such as updating a ledger or routing a workflow for approval. The third pathway delivers prompts. These are predefined logic templates that constrain the agent's reasoning, ensuring it solves specific tasks with high accuracy rather than guessing. By forcing all interaction through these three primitives, the protocol guarantees that an agent cannot execute any command that falls outside of its explicitly authorized parameters. This controlled interface is a structural requirement for agentic ERP. Organizations cannot scale AI decision support without it. MCP prevents the model's probabilistic reasoning from colliding with the ERP's rigid transactional logic. It is the critical safeguard that stops an autonomous process from escalating into a catastrophic error inside core business systems. Securing a single ERP integration is manageable. Securing an entire sprawling enterprise ecosystem is a different logistical reality. Developers will build agents outside of Microsoft platforms, utilizing AWS Bedrock, Google Cloud, and specialized third-party SaaS environments. This leads to multi-cloud fragmentation. If IT has to monitor AWS consoles, Google Cloud logs, and individual SaaS admin pages just to see what AI is running, governance becomes impossible. Agent 365 addresses this through its central agent registry. Using a capability called Registry Sync, the dashboard functions as a data vacuum, continuously pulling in metadata from those third-party platforms and partner ecosystems. This creates a single pane of glass. Administrators can discover shadow agents, audit their permissions, and quarantine unsanctioned models regardless of where the code actually lives. But the most dangerous vector for shadow AI isn't in the cloud. It is on the local endpoint. Developers routinely install local coding agents, like OpenClaw, directly on their workstations. These models have direct access to local source code, environment variables, and corporate credentials. Agent 365 integrates with Microsoft Defender and Intune to map the blast radius of these endpoint agents. The system charts exactly which devices an agent runs on, the identities it uses, and the cloud resources it can reach. If a local agent exhibits malicious behavior, like attempting to exfiltrate sensitive repository data, Defender can interrupt and block the agent at runtime. For workloads that require high security, Microsoft offers Windows 365 for agents. This isolates the autonomous software entirely, placing it inside a managed, policy-controlled cloud PC where its actions are fully contained. Before an organization can enforce complex security policies across multiple clouds and local devices, it must be able to answer exactly what exists on its network. A unified system of record is the strict prerequisite for multi-cloud AI security. Acquiring this control plane requires a shift in commercial licensing. To monetize the governance of the agentic shift, Microsoft introduced a new top-tier suite, Microsoft 365 E7. Looking at this pricing matrix, we see the financial delta. Standard enterprise security under Microsoft's 365 E5 costs $60 per user per month. The E7 suite reaches $99 per user per month. That markup includes Microsoft 365 Copilot, the Entra suite, and Agent 365. Agent 365 carries a standalone value of $15 per user per month. By bundling these tools into E7, Microsoft calculates a 15% savings compared to buying each component individually. Notice the metric. The license covers the human who manages or sponsors the agents, rather than pricing the software per agent. Microsoft is treating autonomous workflows as extensions of organizational labor, anchoring the billing to the employee, regardless of how many agents operate behind the scenes. Artificial intelligence has moved beyond consumer productivity and now functions as a component of core enterprise infrastructure. Agent 365 establishes the required triad for this new infrastructure: identity through Entra Agent ID, precise data interaction through the Model Context Protocol, and centralized observability through the agent registry. Enterprises that ignore this architectural shift will face rapid, unmanageable software sprawl, exposing their networks to autonomous actors with unchecked permissions. The AI market is moving into a structured, policy-driven reality. Tools are being replaced by protocols, and experimentation is being replaced by audit trails. We have reached the point where the intelligence of a large language model is no longer the limiting factor. The ultimate bottleneck for scaling enterprise